Good morning, class. Yesterday we read the story Painting a Story, the first part of it, and we read about a boy named Hassan who was upset because of some things that he heard his parents talk about their shop. And then he and his friend were in the auditorium at their school, and they listened to a man, Mr. Stevens, talk about being a muralist. And today we're going to go back to the story and we're going to think about word parts, because word parts are what we're going to use to help us figure out the meanings of some of these tricky words. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look back in our story, and you all have the copy out on your desk, but I want you to look at the first word that we're going to look at today. And that is in paragraph 1, and it is this word overheard. So let's look at it together in context. And in context means we're going to look at the entire sentence in the paragraph that it's in the story. And in this case, it says, that morning he'd overheard his parents discussing their family's shop. So we're going to take the word overheard, and we're going to think about some other words that we might know with this same prefix, over, and we're going to think about what we already know about that word part, over, to help us figure out what the word overheard means. So when I look at the word over, I know that it means too much or above. And a word that I know, if I think hard, I think about what other words do I know that have the word over in it. And I think about oversleep, like when I might oversleep when my alarm goes off. So now I can go back into the story. That morning he'd overheard his parents discussing their family's shop. And when I think about oversleep, it means that I slept too much. So when I go into my story and I think about overheard, I think that that means that I heard too much. Maybe he heard something that his parents didn't mean for him to hear. Just like when I oversleep, I sleep too much. The next word I'm going to look at is this word transformed. And as I read, I see that it says, as Hassan thought about it, his worry transformed from tiny seeds into a prickly bush full of thorns. What does transformed mean? When I go back into my chart, I see that the word trans means across or changing. And it makes me think about a story I read before about a transatlantic trip. And in that story, it was about somebody that went across the Atlantic Ocean. So if I think about the word transform, and I know that the prefix trans means across or to change, I think that this word means that something is going to change its form. Something is going to change its form. The next word I'm going to look at is this word right down here at the end of paragraph 7. It is the word uneasy. And again, I'm going to take the word part that I know, the prefix un, and I'm going to think about what that means to help me figure out what the word uneasy means. So when I look at my chart, I see that the word un, the prefix un, means not. And I think about the word uncertain as one that I already know, and it means that I'm not certain about something. So when I think about the word uneasy, then I know that the word not is the meaning of the prefix un. So something that is uneasy is not easy. And that makes sense. It says that his face was uneasy because he could tell that it was not easy. Now we're going to talk about suffixes. A suffix is the ending part of a word that will also help us figure out what the word means. An example of a suffix is ful, which, like it looks like, means full of. An example of that is the word careful. When you are careful, you are full of care. The example we're going to look at in our story is ist, I-S-T, and that means somebody that does something. And we might know the word artist is somebody who does art. So in our story, we can go back and we know that Hassan and his friend were sitting in the auditorium and they were waiting for the guest artist, Mr. Stevens. And when Mr. Stevens came in, he actually tells the students he's a muralist. And a mural, we talked about yesterday, is a big picture that's usually on walls. So if we think about a muralist, we are going to say that a muralist is somebody who does what? Like an artist. Somebody who makes murals. Okay? So that's our example of ist and how we can use it to figure out that a muralist is somebody who makes murals. Okay, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to create this chart in your grammar notebook. This chart is a way that we're going to use some of the same words that we just went over, and we're going to be thinking about them together. This is a part where we are going to be working together to think about what some of these words mean. So in this first part, we looked at paragraph 1, and we found the word transforms. And the prefix that we used was trans. Trans helped us, if you remember, back in our first chart, we said that the word trans meant across or change. We used transatlantic as an example, and we said that in our story, the word transform meant something that changed form. So in our meaning column, we're going to say changed, And for a few of you, I have created the chart for you, so all you have to do is write your answers in it. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to create this chart in your journal, or if you already have the chart out in front of you, I'm going to come around and I will staple those into your journal for you so that all you have to do is fill in the answers as we talk about it together. Okay, now that everybody's ready to get started, let's think about the next word, which is overthink. Okay, I'm going to call from my popsicle sticks, and I'm going to call on Jason. Jason, I want you to tell us what is the prefix. That's right, it is the word over. Over is the first part that's going to help us understand what it means. And then I'm going to go back into my paragraph, and I see paragraph 5. It says, Hassan's heart raced. He was trying not to overthink the problem. If I go back up into my chart that we created earlier together, created for you, we see that the prefix over means too much. And we talked about when you oversleep, you sleep too much. When you overheard something, you overhear too much. So when we think about overthink, Brian, what does overthink mean? That's right. It means to think too much. Think too much. Okay, I'm going to pull my popsicle sticks, and our word is uneasy. In paragraph 7, it says Hassan said his face uneasy. We're actually going to go back up a little bit more before we get to that word. The whole sentence says, I know, but this new discount store just opened up down the street, and it sells books for much less money than our shop. Hassan said, his face uneasy. So that's our word. We're going to go back up here. We figured out that un means not. The prefix is un. So I already gave you that clue. The prefix is un. And Flora, I want you to tell me, what does the meaning of uneasy, now that you know the prefix is not? That's right. It means not easy. So when we say something is uneasy, we say it's not easy. So Hassan's face looked like it was not easy. Not easy. Wasn't an easy solution. The last word on our list is muralist. Muralist. And we can go back into paragraph 11. And we're going to actually read it, and I see it actually basically in paragraph 10. So I'm going to change this to paragraph 10, because when I go back into 10, I see that Mr. Stevens says, but here's the funny thing, drawing on the walls is how I make my living now. You see, I'm a muralist. Okay, so in this word, we're looking for the suffix. Christopher, can you tell us what the suffix is? That's right, it's ist. So I'm going to come over here in my chart and write ist. And now I have to think about, what is a muralist? Well, I'm not sure. If I don't remember what ist means, I can go back up in my chart earlier that I created for you. And we said ist is a person who does something. And our examples were artist or muralist. So if we can go back into our chart, look here. Addie, what is a muralist then? That's right. Someone who makes murals. And if we weren't sure what a mural was, we talked about this yesterday. Brian, what is a mural? That's right, a mural is a big piece of art that is created usually on a wall. All right, now that we've created our chart, we've gone over our prefixes and suffixes. We've gone over trans. We said that means to change something. Over, which means too much. Un, which means not. And our suffix today is ist, which means somebody who makes something. So we've got a great chart of words, and we're going to use that chart to help us answer this prompt. So this is going to be your independent practice today. This is going to be where you take everything that we've learned and you put it together to help answer this particular writing prompt. The prompt today is use at least 2 words from your chart. So we're going back to the chart we just created. It should be in your notebooks. So you're going to use at least 2 words from the chart to explain what Mr. Stevens' job is and how he helps communities. We've been talking about community helpers, and that we know that there are a variety of ways people can help communities. So we're going to see how his job, you're going to write about how Mr. Stevens' job helps the community. The first thing you're going to write is to tell us what he is. And we've gotten lots of clues. You can even go back into your story to help you figure this out. But by now you should know what Mr. Stevens' job is, and we've even talked about it several times. So you're going to use your chart, and on the bottom of your chart you're going to write a few sentences to tell us 2 words. So when we break apart our prompt, we know we've got to find at least 2 words from our chart. We're going to tell us what Mr. Stevens' job is and how he helps communities. Okay, so I want you to think about it. Use the information that you have. You have your chart. You have your story, painting a story, part 1. That should help you. Okay, now I'm going to pull aside these students that I want you to talk to me for a few minutes. I would like to talk to Benjamin. I would like to talk to Michael. I would like to talk to Olivia. And I would like to talk to Alyssa. I'm going to give you this sentence frame. I've printed them out for you, and I want you to take them and put it, I'll staple it into your notebook. But this is going to help you. It's got some blanks on it, and it's going to help you write the sentences that we're doing today for our independent work. So I want you to think about it. What it says is Mr. Stevens is a blank. What kind of word do you think will go in there? I don't want you to tell us the answer. I want you to tell us what do you think is going to go in there. So back at the prompt. When we look back at the prompt, we see that we're looking for 2 words from the chart to explain what Mr. Stevens' job is and how he helps communities. So what's going to go in the blank, do you think? Don't tell us, but what kind of word? That's right, Alyssa. You're going to tell us what his job is, and that's the word that's going to go here in the chart. This means that he is a blank who blank. So then you're going to go back up here. We can even use some of our other words from our chart. We can even use some of the other words from our chart that are up here. I've made copies of this for you. I've printed these out for you all, so you can use words from our example list to go and fill in those blanks. So what you're going to do is you're going to think about this means, so this is the job. This means that he is a blank who does what? What does he do? Talk to each other and think about what does Mr. Stevens do? Okay. Now, the last part that you're going to fill in is the part of the prompt that's up here. Explain what Mr. Stevens' job is. We just did that part. Now we want to think about how he helps communities. So we go up here. Mr. Stevens helps communities by. So think about everything that we just talked about. What does Mr. Stevens' job What does he do? How does that help communities? How do you think what he does helps communities? Talk to your neighbor real quick. Okay, hearing some good thought. So these are some things that you can write about on your own in order to tell me that you understand what Mr. Stevens' job is, what is he called, what does he do, and how does he help communities. And you can even use your painting a story to help you, okay, as well as the charts that I've copied for you. Okay, are there any questions? All right, I'm going to set my timer for the entire class. I'm going to set it for 20 minutes. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. I'm going to be walking around and seeing how people are doing, and I'm excited to hear and to see the writing that you all come up with to talk about Mr. Stevens using the prefixes and suffixes that we've been practicing.